Yet here, as they lay stricken and needful, writhing helplessly on cement floors, they are cut open with machetes and left to slowly suffocate. Convulsing and contorting in the throes of agony, while school children walk on by. Such images of slaughter and bloody red water clearly show the Japanese government has little respect for the state of the world's oceans with their inhumane methods of fishing, often in violation of international treaties, laws and conventions designed to protect overexploiting the oceans and the creatures that live in them. Dolphin meat is later sold in markets and restaurants, though often mislabeled as whale meat. But as though cruelty toward animals raised for food wasn't enough, we've also found ways of making use of them for all our clothes. Jackets, shoes, belts, gloves, pants, wallets, purses, and so on. The next question is obviously, where do our clothes come from? The demand for leather comes primarily from the United States, Germany, and the UK. Just about everybody wears it, with little or no thought of where it came from. Thousands of India cows are slaughtered each week for their skins, purchased from poor families in part of rural India who sell them only after the assurance that the animals will live out their lives on farms. To relocate the animals to a state where they can legally be killed, since cattle slaughter is forbidden in most of India, the animals must be shoed and roped together in preparation for a harrowing death march which could last for several days. Forced to walk through the heat and dust without food or water, coupled with the sheer stress of this terrifying experience for them, many of the animals collapse and are unable to continue. Bear in mind that most of the cattle are being placed in a truck for the first time in their lives and are likely to be frightened, especially if they've been handled hastily or roughly by the men loading the trucks. The noise and motion of the truck itself is also a new experience, one which makes them ill. After 1 or 2 days inside the truck without food or water, they are desperately thirsty and hungry, especially since it is normal for such cows to eat frequently throughout the day. But when the cattle become weary and grow faint, the bones in their tails are broken in an effort to get them back up on their feet. This is done by repeatedly pinching the tail in several areas. Handlers must constantly keep the cattle moving, pulling them by nose ropes, twisting their necks, horns, or tails. They lead, or rather force, the cattle down embankments and in and out of trucks without ramps, causing injuries like broken pelvises, legs, ribs, and horns. Chili pepper and tobacco are also used to keep the animals walking. This practice is done by rubbing the pepper directly into their eyes in order to stimulate the animal back onto his or her feet. And all this before the slaughter. As many as half of the animals will already be dead by the time they arrive at the slaughterhouse. But to make the experience even more traumatic and terrifying, they are often killed in full view of each other. And instead of the required quick slice across the throat with a sharp knife, they are generally killed through hacking and sawing with a dull blade. Afterwards, the skins from these animals are sent to tanneries that use deadly substances like chromium and other toxins to stop decomposition. Remember, leather is dead flesh. It is dead skin, and therefore natural for it to decompose and rot away unless treated with such potent substances as these. And for people, the health effects of such chemicals in tanneries, in lieu of the continued demand for leather goods, is yet another issue. Ultimately, leather from Indian cattle make their way to clothing stores all around the world. Most major chains sell Indian leather. Leather that comes from completely different cows than those we eat. And what about fur? Over 100 million wild animals are murdered for their pelts every year, 25 million in the United States alone. These animals, obtained by hunting and trapping, are kept on fur farms in conditions like these. Naturally, these undomesticated, wild animals are not accustomed to being caged. And cage madness develops when frightened and frustrated animals are driven crazy from the stress of confinement. These wild, free-roaming animals and their offspring find themselves unable to live a natural life, can never take even a few steps or feel the earth beneath their feet. Instead, they are reduced to scratching, circling, and pacing endlessly. The physical injuries these animals endure on fur farms involve broken and exposed bones, blindness, ear infections, dehydration and malnutrition, exposure to freezing temperatures, lack of veterinary care, and slow death. No laws indicate the killing of animals on fur farms. Therefore, the least expensive methods are the most appealing. Carbon monoxide poisoning, strychnine, suffocation, breaking the neck, and anal electrocution are some of the more common methods used. Removed from his or her cage with a heavy neck pole, the animal is walked past the rows of bodies of slaughtered foxes, sables, raccoons, and wolves, among others. Death by anal electrocution is a crude process that requires a probe to be inserted in the rectum while the animal bites down on a metal conductor. Oftentimes, this inept procedure must be repeated to actually kill the animal. and the skin carcasses seen here will later be ground up and fed to the animals still caged.
How much is this run?
This is $49,500.
And so we move on to entertainment. Mark Twain once said, "Of all the creatures ever made, he, man, is the most detestable. He's the only creature that inflicts pain for sport, knowing it to be pain." In rodeos, bulls and broncos don't buck because they're wild, but because they're in pain. A belt called a flank strap or a bucking strap is secured around the animal's body over the genital area. As the animal leaves the chute, a tight jerk on the belt is enough to start him bucking in pain. Apart from other injuries animals incur at rodeos, such as broken legs, they're also worked up by being slapped, teased, given electric prods, and otherwise tormented to bolt out of the chute in a frenzy. Roping, as seen here, involves throwing a rope around the neck of a frightened animal running full speed, jerking the poor creature to a halt, and slamming him or her to the ground. Like any other business, dog racing and horse racing are industries motivated by a common denominator: profit. At fairgrounds across the country, animals are used to race, bet with, and spectate over. Training for these events is accomplished by withholding food and sometimes water. These animals, unfamiliar with their surroundings, the noise, the crowds, even what they're supposed to be doing, are all too often injured and discarded in pointless, trivial, outlandish contests designed to make profits and entertain. Besides loss of habitat, hunting is the #1 threat to wildlife today. Hunters kill over 200 million animals every year. Deer, rabbits, and squirrels top the list of desirable targets. There is no denying it. If hunting is a sport, it is a blood sport. The targets are living, and they undergo violent deaths. Fishing is also a death sport, wherein the non-human animal suffers. Researchers have distinguished that fish show pain behavior the same way mammals do. Anatomically, physiologically, and biologically, the pain system in fish is virtually the same as in birds and mammals. In other words, fish are sentient organisms, so of course they feel pain. For those who think fish die gentler deaths, consider that their sensory organs are highly developed. Their nervous system's complex. Their nerve cells very similar to our own, and their responses to certain stimuli immediate and vigorous. When going to the circus, rarely do we stop for a moment and consider what incites an animal to do something unnatural, even dangerous, such as jumping through flames, balancing on one foot, or diving into water from shaky platforms high in the air. Animal trainers would like for the public to believe that animals are coaxed into such behaviors with the promise of rewards. But the truth is that animals perform because they fear punishment.
Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Pancho, let's go! Pancho, let's go!
In essence, circuses condemn animals who are wild by nature to live out their days isolated in tiny, barren cages, denied normal exercise and socialization, shuttled around from place to place, and shackled in chains for up to 95% of their lives.
Elephants are taught to perform with positive reinforcement and never hit.
Never hit. Never, never, never will you see anyone use the ankus as anything other than a guide or a tool.
No!
No!
No! No, 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 no!
Dominance, subservience, and pain are integral parts of the training process.
Hurt him. Don't touch him. Make him scream. If you're scared to hurt him, don't come in his way. When I say rip his fucking, you know how I am about touching him, right? So if I say rip his head off, rip his fucking foot off, what does that mean? It's very important to do it, right? You know, when he starts squirming too fucking much, both fucking hands, boom, right under that chin. Sit, and you better back up. And when he fucks around too much, don't grab that leg. You fucking sink that hook and give everything you got. When it's in there, go. When you hear that screaming, then you know you've got their attention. Right here in the morning. You do it on the road. She's gonna fucking do what I want. That's just fucking way it is. All right. Becky! Becky! All right, Tubbs. Tubbs.